remember once walking around here with my father. This was about 20 years ago. And you couldn't take a step because it was overgrown. There were fallen tree limbs. I mean, there was a time just about a year and a half ago where in the back of the cemetery, it was just, if someone had thrown a match, about 20 acres would have gone up because it was all just nothing but dried, rotted wood. And it was kind of terrifying. You didn't know what was lurking back there.
This was definitely a forgotten place, and there are a lot of forgotten people that I think even family members, may not know the full history on. So this is definitely, and forgotten in terms of just the neglect and the lack of care and just the shape that this place is in.
I've been coming out here now for probably close to 15 years. The first time I came out here, I was just incredibly saddened and disappointed. I came out looking for a family member, and having gone to so many other of the big cemeteries around Dallas that are so well maintained, and I mean, they're just, you can just walk through easily, there's no problem. Then you come out here and everything was overgrown. There was broken down equipment everywhere. There was, old trucks parked on tops of graves. It was bad. In the back corner, the fence had been at one point kind of pushed down, and people were just dumping like couches and old furniture, televisions, whatever they didn't want to get rid of themselves. And it was really disappointing to see how neglected the cemetery was, even with an acting board of trustees and a full-time maintenance person that lived on the grounds.
I wish I could spend all my time cleaning stones, but there's so much more to do. There's so much more that needs to be done out here.
You really wouldn't even know that you were walking in a cemetery, other than once in a while you'll see, you're like, why is that there? And you'll realize, oh, that's a headstone or a part of a headstone. Also very sad, made you want to go in there and clean, because when you come across these stones that nobody's seen in 20 or 30 years, it's sad. You think, this person, it'll say gone but not forgotten, and you're like, sorry buddy, but you were forgotten.
It was a hot mess, if you will, okay? But that is what I think is, unfortunately, an honest answer. To me, walking through anything 50 plus acres smack dab in the middle of South Dallas, am I supposed to be shocked that we have overgrown weeds? Am I supposed to be outraged that the city hasn't done something about this and that and this? It's hard because it's all in perspective.
The problem is it's South Dallas, so it never changes. It just sort of, the problem with it is that there is very little change. So, and that's not the neighborhood's fault, it's the city's fault. That's why Oakland fell into its problems to begin with. Everything in South Dallas, good, bad, and otherwise, gets ignored, swept under the cemetery, as it were.
It kind of feels like even though you're in the middle of the city, you're not really in the middle of the city. Like once you're on this property, you kind of feel like you're just in the middle of your own little world.
mean, I've probably passed it over a dozen times, but I never paid any attention to the cemetery. When I used to work for the company contractor for the city of Dallas, and we did Opportunity Park, and I might have looked over here a couple times, but I never paid any attention. So I never really knew about this place.
Everybody left South Dallas, or everybody who had people buried here left South Dallas. That's what happened to it. It is still sort of a neighborhood cemetery, but this is not where people who live in the neighborhood are buried. This is where the people who built this city are buried. When they used to live over here, when this wasn't South Dallas, when this was just Dallas. So yeah, when all of these folks left, if they were ever really here to begin with, the cemetery got completely forgotten about and ignored.
Had this cemetery, specifically with the amount of historical significance that it has to the city of Dallas, be sitting along Hillcrest or over somewhere around the White Rock Lake area, it would never have seen the times that it got to. But there was a mindset of complacency that existed because the city of Dallas and leadership for so long let that be the expectation for the entire area that the Oakland Cemetery sits in.
You can walk through here and really get a feel for how the city functioned and worked, and how these people lived together, and how they shared this city at that part in time. Because it really all speaks out to how they're laid out in this cemetery. You can see how it was structured. And I think that's a really interesting thing. You walk around and you're like, okay, I get this, I get that. You know, it's more than just the history of the names, it's the history of all of it. It tells the story of the city.
My grandfather's 88, and we spoke about what I was doing, and he was happy, and he was like, well, do you know the history? And I'm like, no, well, I'm learning about it. And he's like, okay.
What's going on out here is we finally have a new board that is accountable and holding themselves accountable for the condition of the cemetery, which is something that the cemetery has been lacking for a very long time. And under that new board, I think that a lot of the families and a lot of the people out here volunteering are inspired to once again put in some effort, because before it kind of felt pointless to put in effort when you knew that that effort wasn't being matched by the people that were actually in charge out here.
I said yes, I would get involved, really thinking, how difficult could it be? It's a cemetery. Well, it's 60 acres, it's 36,000 people. It really kind of, from a governance and the way it was structured and set up, there were a lot of things that were not in good shape. Negligence. You know, it's gross negligence.
They smell pretty badly still, even though we've cleaned them. They're in varying degrees of degradation.
They smelled terrible. Because they smelled so bad, they were relegated to garages. They were not even in filing cabinets. They were in open boxes, and the file drawers from the gatehouse had been removed, and they were just sitting stacked up on the floor of a garage.
We may never have seen them. They may have disappeared from sight, which would be such a tremendous loss for the city.
If I was at 36,000 families' records, I couldn't sleep at night. I would get this to the fireproof vault immediately, you know? And so I don't, you know, to say gross negligence, it's almost ignorance. I can't even think how you can sleep at night knowing that you have got, you know, records that you've got I mean, it's no right having, and so much, I'm really baffled. I mean, it's beyond what I can clearly articulate here, you know.
I can't even imagine. It makes me feel heartsick You know, and of course I kind of jealously guard these records because, you know, they were so close to lost. I mean, they're like my kids, you know, I love them and they're so important.
We really wanted to figure out what that process would look like to prevent it from coming in the hands of the city. And so it's actually funny to think that the solution in my eyes was actually to do everything that I could to make sure that we didn't acquire it, because I wanted to see something positive and something to grow from and something to be excited of with this. And I didn't want it to just be something that was viewed as a maintenance project that we just have to mow a certain amount of times a year to keep from acquiring code violations, essentially. I wanted to see it show its significant value and its historic significance to the city of Dallas.
There's a few of us that are funding this project, and so, you know, as we move forward and as we have funds, you better believe they're going to be taken care of, and there's going to be, you know, accountability and fiduciary oversight and checks and balances and all the things that were lacking before.
Even when it was really, really overgrown, there was something very kind of mysterious and beautiful about it. Even in that condition, there was something really beautiful about, you know, the cemetery.
This place is alive. It is green even in fall as we sit here and talk. There are people here, there are visitors, there are volunteers. We're here paying homage to those who came before us. It's a living history. They may be dead beneath us, but life goes on around them. It's weird. I haven't stood in one place in Oakland Cemetery in a long time. I just walk around it and take it in, but just standing here, it's like, this is really, I wish people who lived in the city came here and just stood and listened and watched and smelled and felt. Kind of how magical and amazing this place is. I will say it looks as good as I've seen it in a very long time. It's nice. It's really, I know that there's an army of volunteers.
We're out here working so much, they'll reach out to me and I'm like, y'all are still doing stuff? You know, I mean, I am extremely impressed with the commitment that occurs here.
You want to come in from that angle or back
I
here?
want to raise this here.
It's actually really inspiring. It's really, really inspiring.
I got it up underneath there. Now what?
You're good.
Okay.
So it's something to me that just says community. A lot of it is not people that live right on the outside of the gate, you know, but it's people that care enough to want to make a difference because of the impact that it has on the people that live right outside of the gate. And that's community.
You're almost there.
Okay.
This side needs to come back.
Which side?
This side.
There
right
we go.
Right there. Back where he belongs.
Uh-huh.
For another 50 years.
It's people out here putting in sweat equity for something that doesn't benefit them. And I'm extremely appreciative. And I don't think that Oakland Cemetery's progress from last August to now would be near what it is without all of the volunteers.
Working in a cemetery is a very rewarding and special thing. There's something, I don't know, I can't quite describe it, but there's something very spiritual about it, I guess.
Kneeling and standing and kneeling like you're in church.
And I'm not doing it for recognition. I don't care anything about, you know, big kudos or pats on the back. It feels good to me. So I can look over there and see my work.
When it all comes down to it and they're in the ground, they're just a stone with a name. That's it. And we just take care of that. Like we're not here to care about whoever Riddle was. We're just here to care for the stone and care for the plot and care for the name and try to leave all the other politics out of it.
It makes me feel good to be a part of this. But as far as the history that I've been learning about Oakland Cemetery, I try not to, I can't go back in the past. So I try to just stay in the present, and I'm glad that everybody on my crew is a different nationality. We were offered to do a job, and that's what we're here for. And I hope that we can make a change. And to be here, and you know, I mean, you got Confederacy buried here. You have different things that now have become a big issue in this time. But it doesn't bother me, you know, because I don't see color, I see people.
I try very hard not to judge people that were alive 100 years ago based on today's standards of what we find acceptable and not acceptable. 120 years ago, what we might think now is just absolutely atrocious was just the socially accepted norm. If you were going to exist in this city, this is the way you were going to exist. I can't put that same criteria on them then that we have now. So I try real hard not to look at it and go, oh, well, you were definitely a KKK member. This is the great equalizer. This cemetery is a great equalizer. You've got people that were worth millions. You've got people that couldn't afford a headstone. It's so Dallas. It's so Dallas.
I do believe that there is some irony there for sure. I also think there's a little bit of poetic justice to see that it is something now that can be an asset to that community. Something that was looked at as an infringement at one point, something that was looked at as an exclusionary piece of real estate is now something that can be inclusionary and something that can serve as an asset to all of the surrounding communities. Very similar history to its neighbor, Fair Park.
It's in South Dallas. It's in a predominantly African-American community. There are a lot of Hispanics. So it's the perfect, you know, how we have continued to progress, starting with the way this was no different than it was all over the United States. So it is like, this is how it started and this is the evolutionary process. So it's cool to be able to see that in this cemetery. I mean, really the growth and the change and the diversity that has happened, that is alive and well here.
But Oakland Cemetery just isn't who we were, but it is still who we are. This place doesn't discriminate. There are black folks here, there are white folks here, there's Santos Rodriguez and other Mexican Americans and other Hispanics who were born and raised here and killed here by Dallas police officers, in the case of Santos Rodriguez. There are tragedies here, there are heroic stories here, there are Confederates here, there are Highland Park developers, newspaper publishers. The entire city story going forward is told here if we just choose to at least acknowledge that we sometimes have to look a little backward. So I love this place. I mean, there are other cemeteries like this that have certainly pioneers and founders, whether it's downtown or Southeast Dallas or wherever. But this place is unique and special. There should be tourist buses that come here every day to tell about this person, that person. There should be field trips. Every school should have to come here. But we don't teach Dallas history, much less Texas history, so.
We have opportunity, like I said, for field trips with DISD. You know, I think that's something that could be done on a regular basis to see foot traffic through here, maybe generate some revenue. I think that we have an opportunity to even have tours be done out here. There is the Oakland Cemetery that exists in Atlanta, and they have quite a similar history that we have, and they have tours there. They also, just about the entire month of October, program it for Halloween. We have an opportunity to program it for Halloween, Dia de los Muertos. We can use this as an asset and show really what it is.
Thank you everybody for being here. This is such a beautiful landmark in the city of Dallas. It is our oldest cemetery, and it's nice to see so much support and care. So without further ado, let me get the show started.
Happy to share this story, as I feel we should all honor our lost loved ones.
I knew my fallen angel was alive and asking me for hope. I knew where she belonged, and it was in the heart of Babyland.
I still look for signs of him in the wind and animals. If I see a happy butterfly with like dark coloring, I think, is that you?
It's a beautiful day. It's time to leave somebody.
And this is a most beautiful place. I mean, when you walk around and you look at the different monuments and the different statuary, and they just don't make it like this anymore.
I think the age of the cemetery is really what intrigued me at first, and the art, and just the beauty of the monuments that are out here. It's not your typical perfectly manicured flat headstones. Everything looks the same. It's very, very big and beautiful and unique. It's just everywhere you turn, there's something else to kind of marvel at for a little bit.
The first time that I came here, I remember walking around and looking at all of the names on the tombstones and seeing just the significance. I felt like I was driving around the city of Dallas and it was different street signs. That was telling to me. The architectural integrity of a lot of the pieces that exist out here just speaks volumes to the age.
So then we'll take a picture of it and then add it to the Find a Grave monument so family can actually.
My family was like, don't go out there, it's dangerous, it's terrible, you don't want to go to that cemetery. And then once I started coming out here, I couldn't stop. It's just all the time we were out here. So we would mow and weed eat around my family and take care of my family, and then walk around and just spend hours just walking around looking at, all the other stones and monuments and everything that's out here.
What was cool in walking around here is to say that there's a little piece of pride, I think, that everybody, or pieces of every part of the city has, that exists right here in South Dallas.
If someone were to spend as much time here as they could, looking up every name, every connection to the city, every connection to each other, they would have a pretty good understanding very quickly of how the city came together, how it often fell apart, and how it needed to do better all the time.
When I walk through this place, I see it as being one of the most magical places in the city of Dallas, for the vast amount of history that is here and the beautiful part of nature that is here, which together are something that every citizen in Dallas should get excited about.
Every 15, 20 years there's a story about how Oakland needs help. Every 15, 20 years someone comes in and goes, I'm going to rescue this place. And every 15, 20 years somebody goes, what happened to the person that was going to rescue that place? I hope it's different this time. I have every reason to believe that it will be.
It is a long-term goal, but I do think that the amount of interest that has come in such a short time with the buzz that has been created around Oakland Cemetery, that the fundraising will happen and that those innovative ideas will also start to roll out as well.
People take care of things they've got pride in, and there wasn't, I'm going to say, this wasn't a lot of reasons to be proud of how this was, and that's hard to say because there are a lot of people that I know care, that have family out here, but it's like there was nothing to be proud of, and so, you know, the community wasn't proud of it. And so we need to make this right for the community and make this right for all the people that are buried here.
I hope that the way things change with the new board, that they can put into place a program and a system to where this cemetery can truly be able to self-sustain for, you know, ever would be nice, but hundreds and hundreds of years.
I worry that as we battle for the future and try to understand our past and grapple with and reconcile our past, places like this are incredibly important, but I also worry that they're going to get lost again because there's only so much philanthropic money that can go around, only so long that a place like this can hold people's attention. That is my biggest fear, that we'll talk a good game about saving Oakland Cemetery. We're going to rescue this place. And it'll happen for a while, and then other people will get distracted, and, you know, life gets in the way of tending to death.